Carlos, I muted you.
Yeah. It's okay. Oh, getting the door again.
Need a door monitor.
Maybe spread out a bit. Try to keep a safety distance. You can use all the space in the hall, so as long as you see Jim and hear him.
Up on the screen. I see people are wearing shorts. It must be warm there.
Not cold, but it's not as hot as last weekend.
Device here. See what my device says. Madrid is 31. Yeah, that's almost
terrible.
Nice weather. Not bad at all. Where my mother lives, it's 34.
California?
Yeah, Palm Springs. That's actually not bad there either. It's going to go to 36, but that's livable. They've experienced some 50s this year already. Yeah, everything looks kind of reasonable. There in San Francisco, 13. It's always cold there. Yeah, maybe we'll wait another minute or two. Oh, Paxi, it's hace tiempo. It's been a long time. I wonder if people, well, I think some people have gotten Zoom fatigue, right? But if we have to stay in without Zoom, they might, people might start coming back to it because it's like, it's either Zoom or nothing, right? Hopefully, I don't know what wave we're on. I hear it's like the 4th wave or the 5th wave, or I don't know. But is it the 4th?
Here we say it's the 5th wave.
5th. I think in France they're saying it's the 4th, but it probably really is the 5th. Yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely informed my view of life, this COVID, and how our reaction to it has been so varied and not consistent. Anyways, oh, I see Martina. Hello, Martina. I see your name in a block. Assume you're there. I had a nice chat with Darren today. That was nice.
Hi, Jim. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Martina. Good to see you. So yeah, maybe I will start. First, I don't know how people felt about last week where we talked a little bit about meditation before we meditated. I thought I would do that a little bit again today. In part because every other Saturday I've been joining a Zoom call from California that is led by an old timer who has been going to India since the 70s, and he was actually a student of Suzuki Roshi, the Zen master who I've been reading his book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Mente de Zen de Principiante. And it's considered one of the best kind of introductory books about Zen, especially, and meditation in general, Zen meditation. And this man also, so he was a student of Suzuki Roshi, and then he did like Goenka retreats with Goenka in the 70s in India. And he was also a follower of Ram Dass and his guru, Neem Karoli Baba. So he has a wide range of influences and teachings that he follows. And, he's going to be 79 next week. So he's got some experience and it's been around. And yesterday he led us on a meditation where he called it a non-dualist state. So one where there's no separation between us and the object. There's no separation between our awareness and the object. We're just one. And I rather liked it, and I'll explain a little bit more about how to get there. And then from there, this was the added part, which maybe we'll do in the last 10 minutes. He then invited us to feel or radiate compassion, offer compassion, kindness, understanding to somebody in our life who is suffering. So it's kind of similar to our metta, where we offer kindness. This one would be compassion or karuna in the Sanskrit Pali languages. And it could also be a part of ourself. So like if there's a part of you that is suffering, maybe there's a mental suffering, maybe there's a physical suffering, maybe there's an emotional suffering, we can also offer it to that part of ourself. And the non-dualist part, which Martin Allward also at the retreat I went to a month ago, he also offered this, where we really feel the body as we do, every week. We usually start off feeling the body, right? And to just stay with that body, even if you like to use the breath, you can let the breath come to the foreground, but keep the body present. Keep the body in the background. Try not to think, try not to think at all, but if you're going to think, try not to think about, I'm observing the body, or that is my body, or that is my breath. Let that personalized stuff go to the side, and instead see if you can experience, and maybe it's going to be possible, maybe it isn't, and don't worry if it isn't in the amount of time we have, but see if it's possible that the awareness, the consciousness, that knowing kind of merges with the physical form, the body. So that's kind of the idea, where it's like one entity. It's Namarupa is how we would call it. It's name, body, or name form, or mind form, yoga, right? And then just see if you can just be with that unified consciousness and body, or that unified consciousness and breath. And then that'll be basically what we're going to try to do. The object really being that unity, that joining, that yoga of the mind and the body, and there'll be sensations, there may be pain, whatever, anxiety, even emotional stuff could come up. We just feel it. Try not to push it away. Don't do anything about it. Just be with it. And then when there's about 10 minutes to go, then I'm going to invite you to offer compassion to somebody in your life who's suffering. Now, it might be possible you won't even have to think about it or use phrases. It might be possible that it'll just come from the state of unity. That non-dualist state, by its very nature, produces compassion. And so you may not even have to try very hard. You might feel for that person. And if you get a little sad or whatever, that's part of it. And if you don't, that's also part of it. So I thought we would try that a little bit different. Are there any questions or doubts or anybody unclear as to what we're going to do? Everybody good? Okay. So we're going to meditate as we usually do, 30 minutes. And 20 minutes will be this using the body, breath and body if you like the breath, or just body if you're indifferent to the breath. And then we'll add this other piece at the final 10 minutes. Okay. Got my phone here. Keep track. So first we want to make sure we've got a comfortable posture. Our body alert, so the back straight, the head maybe pointed a little bit downward, but also straight. We don't want to be hanging with our chin at our chest. You don't want to be rigid, but erect, noble, some people say. So have this kind of noble presence to our posture. And then as you're able, dropping the attention into the body, especially into the torso, the chest, the belly, the buttocks, sit bones. And just feel. Experience whatever might be there. You can expand to feel into the limbs, into the legs, into the arms. Just noticing, experiencing, feeling whatever's present. Maybe some tingling, maybe points of pressure, maybe touch. Maybe you can feel the air on your skin. And including your head, feeling the head, feeling the face, feeling the jaw, which if the jaw is tight, just give it a little wiggle. Maybe you can even open your mouth, give it a stretch. And then if you're able, expanding the awareness to include the whole body, the whole posture, the whole physical form. Parts of it you might be able to feel, other parts you won't be able to feel. It's okay, but we just try to get it all in there. Feeling the posture. Good point of reference can be the shoulders. Feeling the shoulders. Feeling the weight of the body sitting. And feeling the whole posture. And then trying to rest the awareness into the posture. Relax the awareness into the posture. And when you notice you're thinking, or even now, there may be lots of thought, lots of pulling by the nature of the thoughts. No worries, just keep coming back to your body, feeling your body, trying to experience your body. And if you have a breath practice, allowing the breath to come to the foreground, picking whatever spot, if you choose one, to follow the breath, to feel the breath, but trying to also stay aware of the body, of the sitting posture. Maybe think of it as the breathing body. The object is the breathing body. And maybe just noticing, becoming aware of, knowing how consciousness and the body are one. Without getting too intellectual, it's like one really can't exist without the other. There's no way to experience life without a body. And there's no way for the body to experience without consciousness, without awareness. It is one. So just resting in that oneness, relaxing into that unity of consciousness and physical form. And again, coming back. No worries how many times. It's not important. It's just that we keep coming back, staying as long as we stay. If you are feeling sleepy or maybe too relaxed, and this meditation can lead to that, feel free to open your eyes halfway, look at something on the floor, but continue to feel the body. And if it gets really strong, you can always stand up and continue to feel the body. With this non-dual form of meditation, we can be even less concerned about the thoughts. Just stay connected to the body. Don't worry about the thoughts. Don't push them away. Just continue to stay connected to the physical form, to the posture. So, for these next 9.5 minutes or so, if you're willing, interested, try to bring to mind an image of somebody or some part of you that is suffering. And see if you can extend compassion, understanding to that person or that part of you. It can be merely the feeling of compassion, or you can use some phrases. I'm sorry for your suffering, for instance. I hope your suffering eases. Any phrase that might work for you, just extending it in the direction of this person or this part of you, holding it, holding them. And if this is difficult, or you're not able to generate that feeling, just stay with the practice of non-dualist unity, feeling the body, which by another name is really samatha practice, as we normally do with the body as the anchor and the unity of consciousness and body as the anchor. One thing I'll add is if you are offering it to a part of you, you might imagine that part as a young person or a younger person, some image that conveys the feeling you're having, that suffering, that struggle, that sadness that might be there, or fear or anger, whatever it might be. One way to extend compassion is to imagine expanding your awareness to include that person, as if you could give them a big hug wrapped in your kind awareness, your compassionate awareness. And the same goes for those parts of ourself. Bring them on board, bathe them in compassionate awareness. So very good. So just for this last moment, let's thank ourselves for our practice, for taking time out of our schedule this Sunday to sit in this way and probably do the most caring thing we can do for ourselves and for those around us, those we love, and also something that is difficult. I recognize that this isn't always easy. Just giving ourselves a thanks and thanking those of us on this call, those of us at Saladana, and extending it out to all the members of our Sangha, whether they're here today or not, and out to all beings, radiating that goodwill generated by the goodness of our practice. And as always, when you hear the sound of the bell, just seeing what arises, being mindful, any thoughts, any feelings. Well, thank you all very much for your practice and supporting each other in this way. And it's so, it's lovely, really. I really appreciate it. Especially during these weird, challenging times we live, huh? My gosh. Anyways, I thought I would kind of talk a little bit more about non-dualism. Not that I'm an expert, because I'm surely not. But I do see how helpful this way of seeing can be. And, you know, Buddhism, and I mentioned this before, is very much a way of seeing. You know, the very first in the Noble Eightfold Path is right view. And when we see things, call it correctly, right? And I realize that correct is subjective and debatable, right? But when we see things correctly or in a certain way, it affects how we respond to the world, how we perceive the world. Probably, I don't know if this is used in Spain, but it's used in the United States. It's a saying where you could see the glass half empty or you can see the glass half full, right? The glass is half, no matter which way you see it, but do you see it full or do you see it empty, right? That's a very easy example of how perception influences our relationship to the world. And in a Buddhist context, as I understand it, we want to see that things are impermanent. We want to see that they are not personal or that there's no lasting self, that they're empty of self. And we want to recognize that nothing is satisfying forever. Everything is dukkha at some point. So that we don't grasp, that we don't become dependent on things fixing us, because nothing lasts, right? Either you're going to start off with it as dukkha, as pain, or it's going to start off really nice, but after a while, it will stop being nice, or the niceness will diminish, and then you've got dukkha. You've got dukkha no matter which way you look, right? Unsatisfaction or stress or suffering, however you want to define dukkha. And some people think, that's kind of a negative sort of perspective, but when we see things through the lens of these three characteristics, then we're not going to grasp. We're not going to, another way maybe to put it is, we're not going to have expectations that things are going to make us happy when they won't. And we hopefully let go of those expectations. We let go of the grasping, the craving, the tanha in Pali, and we learn to live in the flow of life as it is. And this body practice that we did is where we experience flow, right? This is where our experience of life is experienced through the body, and it's constantly flowing, changing. And so it changes through the body. And so if we can be present with these changes, takes a little bit of practice, but we can start to live in a much more pleasant way, a way with less suffering, with less dukkha. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, because nothing is. It's still going to have its ups and downs, but it'll be more equanimous. They won't be so severe. And over time, it even starts to get, quite nice, quite easier to get through COVID, or easier to, have difficulties with our work or with our relationships or with, our family or whatever our circumstances are. We just gain more capacity. It's just part of the practice of being embodied, getting, unifying the mind and the body. When we're all up in our heads, just stuck up in our heads, we're disconnected from our body. We know those people, right? They're reactive. They're often angry. They're projecting out, they're victims. That person is doing it to me. I mean, we know, and we've been like that, some of us, we know what that's like. When we're down into the body, when we're unified, when we're grounded, we tend to generate this compassion just naturally. And I hope maybe for a glimpse, some of you felt that just kind of naturally spawn or emerge from the embodiment, from the unity. It's interesting that a lot of the teachings, they're 2,500 years old. Some of them are even older, 2,000 years old, long before we had scanning machines and, even before we had neuroscientists and stuff like that. But now we do have these things, and they're able to track how the brain works a lot better and so forth. And one thing I remember learning some number of years ago is the part of the brain that is aware, this prefrontal cortex, is the part of the brain that is empathetic. It's where the mirror neurons exist. And this is the part of the brain that can feel another person's feelings and can feel your own feelings. And so when we're embodied, when we're feeling our bodies, that part of the brain is lit up. It's working. It's activated. And so now the body is releasing neurotransmitters that produce empathy and that can produce compassion. Just naturally. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to say phrases or do anything. The body just does it on its own. And one of I tested this years ago, where I used to go to these meetings where I'd often be judgmental, towards the people who were there. if you would just do this, you'd be better. Or, I always thought I knew better. And so I would judge them. And so then I learned about this practice. Actually, I think I learned about it from a teacher named Rick Hanson, Dr. Rick Hanson, who wrote a wonderful book called Buddha's Brain. Buddha's Brain. And he's a not a scientist, but neuropsychologist. And so when we're connected to our bodies, we've activated the prefrontal cortex and the insular cortex. We're empathetic just kind of naturally. We can't be judgmental. It just bumps up against the state of the mind in that moment. In order to be judgmental, we pretty much have to be from the head up, or we're aware of some anger, some resentment, some fear in the body. But usually we're just head up, and then we're judging. And I'm not saying that judging doesn't have its place. It keeps us alive. We want to discern, what is good and what isn't. But most of the time, our judging is not discerning. Our judgment is, I'm better than that person, or that person, just needs to change so that I'll feel better. Because usually that's what it is, right? The other person is acting in a way that makes me feel uncomfortable. So if I could just get them to change, then I will feel comfortable. That's usually what drives judgment, right? Is I'm feeling uncomfortable, and so I'm judging that person because they're causing it. You just drop down into the body, feel that discomfort, usually passes quite rapidly. So now in this non-dualist point of view, I'm going to segue or use another example that I think works really well. I became very attracted to nonviolent communication, which also exists in Spain, communicación no violenta, because it saw the world through our needs, necesidades, which they said were universal and always good, always beautiful. So the need for obviously air and water and food, those are, pretty standard. Rest, but also other ones like need for connection, need for community, need for touch, need for meaning, need for safety. These are all wonderful, beautiful things that we all share. And in fact, for many of those needs, all beings share them, right? Even a fly has needs that we share, like it has a need to survive. It has a need to propagate. It has a need to eat. We share even down to a fly. And so when we look at the other beings through this prism of needs that we all share, we create a unity there, right? We all have it. This is universal. It's not dualistic. There's no, oh, I have it and they don't. We all have it. It's a non-dualist point of view where we're all in it together. It's just one at the level of needs. Now, Buddhism and Hinduism, especially the Advaita, which means non-dualist Vedanta point of view from the Indian Vedas, they also see things through this prism, through this way of seeing where we're one. There's not us and them, there's just one. And for instance, in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, or as Thich Nhat Hanh, the teacher, and by the way, if you go to YouTube and so forth, there's many, many YouTubes of Thich Nhat Hanh that you can watch. And even though now he's ill, he had a stroke and he's unable to talk, and he's 95 years old too, you could still find his teachings online. And he talks about how we humans and all beings were made of the same things. We're made of minerals, we're made of vegetables, he calls it. We're made of animal, right? And we all have this. And our ancestors, if you go all the way back, as best we know it, we started off as just little plants, right? Maybe single cell organisms, and then over the millions and billions of years, we've evolved into these human beings, but these are still our ancestors and they still live within us. And with that point of view, then even the tree, like there's a tree in front of me, even that tree, I'm connected to that tree. That tree is part of the one. We share the same fundamental, call them building blocks. And so when we have this point of view that we're all one, compassion can just arise naturally, right? It's like, I don't want to harm even that tree, because in a way I'm harming myself. I'm harming the one of which we are all part of. So it's a beautiful way of seeing. And it doesn't mean we don't get dualistic at times, where even in meditation, we'll have the observer observing the object. And that can seem very dualistic, right? It's like the observer is up here and I'm looking at the object. The object's not me. It's this other thing. And that can have a dualistic sort of perspective. And those dualistic things come and go constantly in our life. But it doesn't mean that we are indeed separate, because the object, for instance, the breath and the awareness, consciousness, is in fact just part of this organism, which is part of the whole. And sometimes we can even remind us of that just intellectually. That's often helpful. And we can do this practice. Now, I will admit, I'm no meditation master. I mean, I love doing it, but I'm clearly just an amateur at it. But once in a while, more than once in a while, quite frequently, I can get my mind, get the mind, however you want to look at it, just to the place where there's knowing of consciousness and body together, just one experience going on, and knowing that. And even the knowing is not separate. It comes from within that consciousness. And just resting in it can be so soothing. It can be so peaceful. I love this phrase. Now, this is coming from the yoga tradition of Patanjali. Those of you who do yoga, you've probably heard of Patanjali. He was considered the first yogi to actually write down the Vedas, the teachings of yoga, in Ashtanga yoga. And he said, yoga chitta vritti naroda. So yoga, to join, chitta, which we talk about, it's also in Pali, chitta, mind. Vitri is like sankara, it's like papancha, it's like the movements of the mind, the formations of the mind. So yoga, chitta, vitri, and then naroda means still or calm. So yoga calms the movements of the mind. And this is going back 2,200 years or so, whenever Patanjali lived. He lived couple hundred years after the Buddha. But it's the same idea of stilling the mind of all that chatter, which can be dualistic, right? That's the stuff that's us and them, or as Thich Nhat Hanh would put it, that's the one that is constantly thinking that I'm superior to that, or I'm inferior to that, or we're equal. Either way, you're creating separation, right? We are comparing, evaluating, and this is part of our, natural survival instincts, but they don't lead to happiness. They don't lead to peace in our life, right? Because the mind is just crunching away, judging. Am I better? Am I smarter? Is that person, going to take advantage of me, or whatever? And so we try to still the mind with our practice. Thich Nhat Hanh also puts it in an interesting way, where he divides up consciousness into 4 types of consciousness. And there's mind consciousness, there's sense consciousness, like our 5 senses, and then there's store consciousness, which probably we would think of as like the unconscious or the subconscious. And that's where you could say our instincts are, but also our habits, our tendencies. That's the one that's really in charge, is that store consciousness. The mind consciousness could be maybe thought of as more like the ego, or more our concentrating, our worrying, our judging. Those kind of things are in the mind consciousness. And the mind consciousness, we can kind of set it aside. The store consciousness, no, it's on autopilot. It does its thing all the time. Even when we're sleeping, even in deep sleep, the store consciousness is working according to the perspective of the Mahayana Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. But the mind consciousness, when we go to sleep, if we're in deep sleep, it's off, right? And in meditation, we can even get into those very deep states of absorption where that level of thinking is quiet, but consciousness remains. Consciousness is still there. And this is where the healing really is. I think one of my teachers, Howie Cohen, he put it like, I wish you could experience the cooling, I think was the word he used, the cooling of concentration, of stillness. It's healing even. And I think that's what Patanjali and the Vedanta people see it as, that yoga stilling the formations of the mind is healing. It brings us together, makes us whole, you could even say. We lost one of that was Emilio. Bye, Emilio. How we doing? We got a couple more minutes. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to add. Here, okay, there's a little philosophical what I'm going to say next, and definitely a debate that goes on between the materialist, the scientist about consciousness, and then the Eastern philosophers. But that is that objects only exist in the mind. So the only way we know there's an object is through the sense doors, right? We either see it, we feel it, we smell it, we can hear it, or we taste it, right? Taste it. This is how we know it's there. So without those five senses, how do we know it's there? We really don't. There's no way to prove it, because the only way we're going to know it is through these five senses. So in Buddhist philosophy, they say that objects exist in the mind. And you see this in the four foundations of mindfulness, which we've talked about. The first foundation being body. So we're mindful of the body. Second foundation being feeling tone. We're mindful whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. Third is mind. We're mindful of the formations, the sankharas, the different things that go on in the mind. And then the fourth one is objects in the mind. And so if it's in the mind, it's not separate from us either. It's all one. And, in the Mahayana tradition especially, they'll even go so far as to say that all this is basically an illusion. Doesn't mean we don't act as if it isn't an illusion. We still want to go to our job and, do the right thing. But because these are just objects that appear in the mind through the sense doors, in their opinion, a very good argument is that it's all an illusion. It's like a dream, right? It's just like a dream. We have a dream, stuff comes up in our mind. We think it's real during the dream, right? I mean, we know it's real. We're convinced it's real. And then we wake up and we realize, oh, that was just a dream. Well, they apply the same thing here, because these objects are just arising in the mind. There's no other way to prove them except through the sense consciousness. So anyway, that's a little heady, but kind of interesting. And if you like that kind of stuff. Probably the only thing last thing I would say, and this also can be a very big subject, but in Buddhist philosophy, we recognize that our free will to do something is rather limited. In the Mahayana tradition, it's limited by what's in the store consciousness. This deep embedded subconscious pretty much is running the show. But we don't believe that we're completely absent of free will. Through effort, through practice, we can plant the seeds of, for instance, goodwill, metta, of karuna, compassion, mudita. We can plant these seeds, and seeds, like what they do, right? They grow. And so we plant them, we water them, we cultivate them, we nourish them, and then they grow. And so it's not fatalistic, it's not pessimistic, but it recognizes the challenges that we have. And, I've been on this earth long enough to know that as much as I've wanted to change, it has not been easy, and it's like there really are powers out there far greater than my will that are saying, no, Jim, you're pretty much what you have been all along, and you're going to continue to be that. And that's just the way it is. And hopefully acceptance comes and, we don't suffer about it. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Is there anybody who has a question or wants to make a comment? I mean, there was a lot there. Maybe someone has an opinion or a comment. Wants to share. Carlos? No, nobody? I might call on somebody. I can't even tell. In Saladana, I can only see you, Carlos. I can see them, but I can't tell who they are. Okay, Carlos.
So we have a question from Miguel, right? Yeah. Can you hear Miguel? Or maybe Miguel, you can come closer and speak into the microphone.
Hi.
Hello.
So the question is slightly unrelated, but the very interesting thing that you were telling us. But it's I'm reading here 5 precepts, and one of them includes avoiding substances or drinks that affect your mental state.
Yes. Yeah, that's the fifth one, I believe. Yeah.
So
yes,
I was like,
yeah.
First of all, alcohol, like a very popular one, caffeine also. And whether they had something to do with the waves that you were telling that some people have very, very short waves, to try to minimize these waves, whether that was related to that.
Well, the way the precept normally is translated is that we will not take substances that will cloud the mind or obscure the mind. Now, those ups and downs that I was talking about, those start to become more moderate with practice as we're on the path, as we're practicing all 5 of the precepts, as we're practicing the Eightfold Path, as we're practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Those will start to go like this. The one about alcohol and any substance, drugs or whatever, is so that we can see clearly. And this is so fundamental in Buddhism and in Hinduism, that when we can see clearly, when we can understand clearly, this will lead to freedom. And if we're constantly foggy because we're on alcohol or drugs or the day after when we're still foggy, right? Then we're not going to be able to see clearly. And that comprehension, that right view, that right understanding, the First Noble Truth isn't going to be achieved. And if you can't even get to the first one, you're not going to be able to get to the rest. Now, does that mean you can't have a sip of wine? This is a personal choice. Does it cloud your mind? I know very few people, honestly, though, who can have, let's say, 2 glasses of wine and their mind isn't cloudy. It's cloudy after 2. I know some people who think they're good after 1. They're still clear-headed. Maybe. For me, if I have 2 sips, I'm a different person. so I need to not drink. That's just my rule for me. Better to do nothing. And in fact, I think I heard you say something about coffee. Caffeine. Did you also mention caffeine? I think in your question, Miguel. Yeah, even for me, if I have like two double espressos, that will change how I perceive the world. Or definitely, let's say 3 or something, maybe 2, depends. But so yeah, even coffee, even caffeine can affect how we see the world. But the goal is for clear seeing. The goal is clear comprehension, and so we don't want to do anything that's going to mess with that. And that's why that particular precept is there. And we try to follow that at Saladana and in our Sangha. We try to follow all 5. So I hope that answered your question. And
Yep. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye, Martina. So Martina's, I don't know, Carlos, someone's going to be teaching Wednesday, right? Either Martina or you will be there. Okay, good.
We'll be here.
Good. Martina said me. All right, so Martina will be at Saladana on Wednesday for the Sangha in Spanish. I hope you can make it. So if there's nobody else with a question, why don't we do a short metta meditation and then we'll say goodbye. So metta, much like karuna, is a heart, what they call a heart practice. And it also can be used for levels of concentration and so forth. And I'll tell you, I've used it so many times over the years when I have a resentment towards somebody. You know, maybe I'm angry at even people I don't even know, but then I'll say metta phrases to them. May you be happy, may you be well, may you be safe, whatever it might be. And usually my resentment goes away in seconds. So anyways, why don't we'll do 4 levels towards ourselves, towards a benefactor or somebody we love, towards somebody we are having problems with, and then all beings. And for those of you who are new, you'll get it because I'm just going to do a few phrases. So I often put my hands right on my chest just so I can feel that area. So starting with I, yo, may I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. Now for a benefactor, somebody we really look up to, admire, love unconditionally, or could even be a pet that you love unconditionally. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now a difficult person. So somebody where maybe you have a resentment towards them, or they did or didn't do something that you wanted. A little bit of hurt. Imagine them in front of you. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And then all beings in all directions without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, to conclude our session today, in the spirit of renunciation and generosity, letting go, we'll share the fruit of our practice, the teachings, our Sangha with all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence, discrimination, racism, coronavirus, and all its variations. And may all beings find their way of seeing, their view that leads to the end of their suffering, that leads to their freedom. May all beings be free. Yeah, well, thank you all very much. Such a privilege, really. It's a privilege to keep doing this, and I'm glad somebody shows up. You guys show up. Yeah, I'm just sort of, it's funny, I'm not sure what the heck I'm doing. In terms of my schedule, I may be back in Madrid by Sunday to do it at Saladana, and I may not. I'll figure it out. But either way, I will either be on Zoom, flowing in or flowing out. Either we'll stream in or we'll stream out. But either way, there'll be something on Sunday and hopefully all through August for those of you who would like to participate. And then also Wednesday in Spanish. And Carlos, are there anything Tuesday, or what's the story on Tuesday?
Yeah, so on Tuesday we have a session from 8 to 9 p.m. And for now, what we're doing is we're following Chema Muela's streaming in Spanish.
So for those of you who want to participate with Chema Muela in Espanol, that's also on Tuesday at Saladana.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. You can feel free to unmute if you're on Zoom and say hi and bye. And
thank you, Jim.
thank you.
Jamie, what's the
Thank you, and thank you all the group.
Thank
I'm
you.
not
Good
sure.
to see you
Jim,
again. Yeah, I'll stay, Carlos. Yeah.
So Damien wants to say something.
Okay.
Closer to the microphone.
Maybe we should try to see if we can get that microphone to work. But
I just wanted to mention about the books, which
are they now ready to lend?
all ready to be borrowed. And,
Okay.
on the clipboard, there's a list of all the books on the top in Espanol. The other two are in English. So you just, on the list, if you want to borrow books, you just write your name in pencil, but this we can erase it with your telephone number and date. Because I think we're 3 weeks.
Thank you very much for doing that. I wonder, I will put something on the website then too, so people know, and I'll start mentioning it on Sunday. But thank you very much, Damien. That was a huge help.
I thought I'd get it done earlier. But
No, it's perfect. Okay, thank you. All right, you guys. Well, thank you. Yeah. Have a good week. Have a good night.
You too. See you soon, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And thank you again, Carlos. You're awesome. You're the guy.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.